Hello and welcome to the Brotherhood of Kings Podcast, where we celebrate the brilliance, resilience, and power of Black men. I'm your host, Coach Michael Taylor. In this episode, I'll be speaking with Freddy Zenith Weaver, who is the co-founder of Tantra Nova, which is a global educational organization dedicated to fostering spiritual and physical harmony through the integration of Tantra yoga practices. Today, we're going to have a powerful and much needed conversation about healthy sexuality for Black men. For too long, Black men have been subjected to harmful stereotypes and limiting narratives about our sexuality. We're depicted as hypersexual, aggressive, or emotionally disconnected. But the truth is, our sexuality is a sacred and essential part of our overall well-being. Freddy brings decades of experience in Tantra, emotional healing, and conscious intimacy, offering insights on how Black men can reclaim their sexuality in a way that is healthy, empowered, and deeply connected to their true selves. This is a conversation every Black man needs to hear, because healthy sexuality isn't just about physical pleasure. It's about emotional wholeness, self-love, and authentic connection. So get ready for an enlightening discussion that will help you break free from limiting beliefs and step into your full power as a conscious, connected, and thriving Black man. So let's dive in. Hello, Freddy. How are you?
Hey, Michael. Good to see you, man. Great to be here. I'm fine. Feeling good.
Fantastic, man. I got to tell you, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today because when I started putting together this podcast and my magazine, and anytime I think of sexuality, I think Freddy Weaver.
Okay.
I want to thank you for showing up, man, and sharing your wisdom.
Thanks for your platform and having me on. Great to be here.
So let's begin, first of all, by sharing what Tantra Nova is and what it does.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, Tantra Nova, my partner Elsbeth and I founded Tantra Nova 25 years ago here in Chicago. And we have been teaching and working with couples and individuals all over the world since we started. Now, it's interesting because if I start at the beginning, I was here, initially moved with a company. I was in the software business. I'd been in for about 15 years, and I was looking for a change, something that was going to be more invigorating and engaging in my life and more authentic in what I had to offer, what I felt I had to offer. And while I was single online looking for a Shakti, met Elsbeth, and she was on her own tantric journey. But 6 months to the day we met, we what I call transcended the romantic drama, pooled our resources, and created this work. And this is all we've been doing: books, tapes, television, work with corporate groups and individuals and groups, as I say, workshops all over the country and some the world, and some of the biggest retreats as well. And what it is, Tantra Nova, is working and teaching practices that assist people in moving towards what they most deeply desire. Now you might think, well, what does sex have to do with all of that? So what we're really working with is the altered state of what happens in the sexual. So first of all, there's many things we do with sex. One, we create life. That's just foundational with that energy. And then the last 100 or so years, we've been recreating with the development of contraceptives. And so what we're teaching is how to co-create with this intelligence, energetic activation. Because when we're in it, we're more open, loving, vulnerable, receptive. Chemically, we're changed, more endorphin, serotonin, oxytocin, the feel-good hormones. So we're in an altered state. So we teach a form of sexual meditation that, aligned with the distinctions that we share with breath and energy awareness and intention, assist one to get past the unconscious beliefs and oftentimes stuck places that keep us spinning and not moving with grace, ease, and flow towards what we most deeply desire.
Got it. I love that. And that's why this conversation is so important, because I think too many times, especially as Black men, we see sex and we think physical. And we're going to go a lot deeper than that in this conversation. Now, when it comes to sexuality, most of us as Black men did not have positive male role models to teach us about sexuality. Fortunately for you, your father was instrumental in teaching you about sexuality. So tell us a little bit about your father and what he taught you.
Yeah, great question. I'd love to always talk about pops. So I was first introduced to a large foundation of our curriculum when I was 13 years old, living in Hawaii. I was going through my puberty, spending a lot of time in the shower, as a lot of guys are at that age. My father at the time was a practicing psychiatrist. He took pity on me. He's a very enlightened guy and gave me a book to read on how to integrate sex and meditation. I was very fortunate to have him in my life. And well, I loved it. My girlfriend loved it. And that was my first introduction to sexual meditation.
Got it. Now, a crucial part of sexuality is having a partner that shares the same values and attitudes about sex that you do. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with Elsbeth.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate to meet Elsbeth because she was on her own tantric journey and wanted to shift in what she was doing. She was in international business consulting, very successful with it, but felt there was something more. The teacher often teaches what they most deeply need to learn or want to learn. And so she had her own issues in terms of relationship and long-term relationship that she wanted to get past. And when she got into Tantra, she saw that she could start to move towards that. And as part of the action step in that was creating me, and meeting me. She had her profile on a site, and she said, whoever I meet must be interested in Tantra. And when I wrote her, I said, well, I was raised in a tantric household. I said, watch what you ask for because you come in spades at you. And so anyway, yes, she's really quite something. She has a PhD in education. And this is an educational endeavor that we're in. But so between the two of us, Elsbeth and I, we really actually have been able to blend our talents and our gifts to create something that is unique and that has a positive effect in people's lives. We've worked with thousands of couples all over the place, the world, and
Nice.
singles, and it gets results.
Nice. Now, so I'd like to talk about the influence society and cultural conditioning has on how a man views sexuality. For
Yeah.
example, have you ever noticed that in a lot of movies, a man
Mhm.
and a woman go out on a date and they end up going home, and the first thing they do is they start kissing, and the guy grabs the girl and lifts her up against the wall or on the table, and the next thing you know, they're having this incredible sex. So let's talk facts. Is that how it usually goes the first time you have sex with someone?
Well, it could go a lot of ways. That sounds like a great first introduction, But the thing of it is often we get stuck in that, and particularly for men, we start with the little head. Look, ma, no hands. With the little erection, and then we're run by the little head our whole life. And what appears to the woman oftentimes is lust, selfish love. We've had many couples in the prime of their sexuality, aliveness in life, and she's like, I don't know if he loves me. And he's like, of course I love you, honey. Honey, look, pointing at his erection. And, she's like, yeah, but can you kiss me with your heart? And that's not something that us guys learn. There's two emotions that we are modeled to be okay to show, and that's fucking or fighting, excuse my French, But, intimacy, tenderness, that kind of crying, that is not something that's okay for men in terms of what we're modeled. We have all those emotions. But one of the few times that we're free from all of the construct that we're modeled and taught and told and in a deep subconscious belief is when we're in our sexual energetic. That's when we are loving, we're open, we're vulnerable, we're sensitive, we're caring, we're feeling deeply. So, when we start with the penis or the lingam in Sanskrit, it's called, which means wand of light, much more endearing than dickhead, So for the guys in Tantra and all the variations there are, the primary edict is to learn to separate ejaculation from orgasm. And that will, inform your lovemaking, but even more than that, as a practice, it starts to uncouple the unconsciousness we have around our sexual selves.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, also, have you noticed the constant barrage of ED medication commercials there are now? There are so many commercials out there claiming to not only help men get an erection, but the implication is the pills will help them last for hours. And the commercials usually start with a beautiful woman talking about how the little blue pill has enhanced their sex life and how happy and satisfied they are since their man's been taking this pill. But do you think these commercials are actually setting up unrealistic expectations? And are they actually hurting men? Because now men are setting up unrealistic expectation when it comes to sex.
It's definitely, it's not the highest level of consciousness around our sexual selves, but it's typical. For guys, we feel oftentimes that we're not a man unless we have a big hard lingam. So in the practice of learning to separate ejaculation from orgasm, as I mentioned earlier, a man learns to work with the subtleties of pleasure and feeling and energy. And when you can work with subtle levels, you can even have a great sexual experience with a soft on instead of a hard on. You can ease into lovemaking. It's not always just boom, 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 let's great to the orgasm, and that's the best part. You can do slow lovemaking. You can be hard and slow and breathe, and you start to circulate energy consciously with your breath and awareness. And it's a learned practice that anyone with a little attention to some details can do. And that brings love to a whole lovemaking to another experience.
Yeah. Now, to kind of piggyback on something you said earlier. So I wrote a book titled A New Conversation with Men. And in the book, I wrote about what I call the 5 illusions of manhood. And the first illusion is to be a man, you must be non-emotional and disconnected. And the second illusion is to be a man, you must use sexual conquest as a gauge for manhood. Now, it is my belief that these 2 illusions are what keep most men from being truly happy with their lives. So, do you believe these 2 illusions can keep a man from experiencing healthy sexuality?
If that's the only vision you have about happiness and sexuality, I mean, that can be a part of it that can be, joyful and be celebrated. And if we can't celebrate also the tenderness and the stillness and the loving heart, then we're missing a lot of what's possible in terms of the human experience. It's like when we go through this life at the end, it's like how much love, did we really get, and how much love did we give? And so for men to really get that we're multidimensional. We're not just one dimensional. And particularly, as you say, for Black men, there is a whole plethora of prescribed ways that we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be super sexual, and even we do it to ourselves and each other. But one of the things that we have going for us, many things, but one particular thing is our creativity. A lot of the racism and prejudice that we've experienced, that we have somehow been able to turn into creative endeavors, success, moving forward. We've survived. We not only survived, we thrived. And that creativity, if you think of sexual energy and the kernel of that energy, the core of it is creative. It creates life and pleasurable when we're in it. And when you bring consciousness to the sexual, creativity and pleasure start showing up in areas of life that seem completely unrelated to sex in the simple process of living. We've already got that sex going for us. And it doesn't look sexual when we're being creative, but it's the same things, the endorphins and the serotonin, the oxytocin and creativity. And so that's part of what's sexual and sexually appealing for us. So learning to draw on our innate sexual energy in a way that continues to empower us, not just in a hard, intercourse way, which is great. I'm not, putting that down too. Let's expand that. That's what I'm saying. Let's expand what's already a big part of who we are.
Yeah, and I think what happens though, a lot of times as men, we see sex as primarily a physical act, right? And a lot of men spend a lot of their energy trying to perform in an attempt to, to please their partners. And their primary focus is to, basically bring their partner to orgasm, which in turn helps them feel good about themselves as a sexual partner. But I believe what that does is it creates a feeling of dissatisfaction because there is no emotional connection. It's mostly physical. What do you think?
Yeah. The emotional piece, particularly for men, needs to be evolved as a practice. And we can do that with just beginning to do a simple breathing practice, which I'll share with you now, if it's okay.
Sure.
Okay. So this particular type of breathing is called parasympathetic breathing, and your eyes can be open, closed, or soft focus. Sitting up or laying down, what you want to do is put a hand on your belly, and you want to breathe into your nose, down your trachea, lungs, and extend your belly into your hand like a big balloon. Really extend the belly into the hand like a big balloon. Exaggerate it, and then follow with your awareness your breath back up and out through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. And continue to breathe that way. We won't do this for long. Breathing into your nose, trachea, lungs, extending the diaphragm and belly like a big balloon on your inhalation. Following with your awareness, your breath back up and out through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Letting your thoughts come, letting your thoughts go. Continue to breathe in this manner. Rise of your belly on your inhalation. Flattening of your belly on your exhalation. Through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. As thoughts come in, don't engage, acknowledge, let them be. Bring your focus and awareness back to your breath. Into your nose, trachea, lungs, extending the diaphragm and belly in your inhalation. Following the breath back up and out through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Continue to breathe that way. Just a few more breaths. Stay with it. You are your own witness to your thoughts, interpretations, or meaning. For these few moments, letting all that go, just breathing and being. And slowly bring yourself back into the space, opening your eyes. And Michael, if you could share how that was for you, how you feel.
Well, what I noticed was as a interviewer, I'm thinking, focusing on the interview, right? But as I did that, I brought myself into my body and allow myself to feel the movement in my body, feel the air going down my trachea, through my lungs into my belly, which is something I don't normally do. I'm always exteriorly focused, but that allowed me to really just be centered and bring my awareness and attention to what was going on inside of my body.
Yes, and that's the beginning. That's the beginning of self-awareness, and that expands. And you were very good because, you do have a lot you're juggling right now. You've got the technical, you've got this interview, and so on. And yet in those moments, even giving your mind and your body a break from all that allows you to even be sharper when you come back to focus, come back to left brain. So that's what is missing for many people, is that kind of sensory practice of observation and awareness of our own body. That's always with us. And so we're always in that left brain, working, calculating, analyzing, figuring out the next thing. But to just be still starts to tap into an energy of movement that is available and that can give us a clue to being still, to moving sexual energy, to connecting with our partners, to being more fulfilled in an area of our lives that we want to create or expand or bring more of something in.
Yeah, and that just the breathing part of it, just my body, I can feel my body just kind of relax, right? It just let it all go. That was nice. That was
Yeah.
So that's a great opportunity. Now we're going to take a quick break and we'll let our sponsors do their thing. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about celibacy and how that can positively impact our lives as men. So be right back. And we're back. So, Freddie, so I want to talk about something that a lot of men aren't comfortable talking about, which is celibacy, but I want to set it up by sharing a story. After my divorce, I was really struggling with relationships. And one of the things that the women were saying as they were leaving was, I care too much about you to stay in this relationship, which made absolutely no sense. And then they would say, the reason that I'm leaving is because you're emotionally unavailable. Now, at the time, that made no sense to me whatsoever because I was a good guy. I was a nice guy, believed in monogamy. I was fun and all that kind of cool stuff. But I was so disconnected. I didn't know what they meant. Well, I was dating this girl, and one night we were in the physical act of sex. And I felt an emptiness in my heart that I can't fully explain, but a part of me almost felt like I was dead inside.
Hmm.
And during the physical act of sex, I stopped, I rolled over, and I said, look, this isn't about you. This is about me. There's something going on with me that I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, but I can't do this to you. I care too much about you because I know you're investing a lot of emotional energy in this relationship and I'm not there. So this isn't fair to you. So I hope you'll understand, but I have to end the relationship. Now, that was a huge moment for me. First of all, just the awareness and the feeling that I felt, that emptiness, let me know that there was something going on that I needed to address. And as a result of that interaction with that person, I made a conscious choice, not necessarily to be celibate, but to make sure that I figured out what it was that was keeping me from being able to connect intimately with another person. And so I began a journey, what I call my journey of transformation. And I started, number one, dealing with some childhood trauma stuff and just really getting clear on who Michael Taylor was. And so it was an amazing journey that I was celibate for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And it was a 5-year journey that the best thing that I've ever done. Because once again, I connected authentically with who Michael Taylor really is. And so I just want to get your thoughts on the idea of taking the time to unpack some emotional blocks that may be keeping you from experiencing true intimacy and connection.
That's a great story, and thank you for sharing that, because it's so apropos for so many in terms of this unconsciousness that we have and distance we have with our emotional, personal selves. Once we get into relationship, it starts out, like you said, beautifully. You have fun, you smell good, you love everything about each other. And then after, if you get together 3 years, it's pretty much over, the honeymoon part of it. And so all of the stories in terms of what we believe, what we were socialized, our families, and then we start to externally project the problem that I'm having is because of what you're doing. And so we get so emotionally unwrapped and unhinged that we can't even see the other person anymore. So doing celibacy is a great way to reconnect with yourself. And even if you're in a committed relationship, because to move towards conscious lovemaking when it started out with boom, 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 boom orgasm, and it's just so emotionally, it's so high pitched. If you can start out with slow love as well and start to bring in some of these practices that I'm talking about, just like that breathing practice. Can you imagine that breathing practice in an intimacy? I mean, how much more powerful that intimacy would be. We kind of stumble upon those things, which is what we kind of think is magical about sex. But that stuff and that feeling is always right there. So when we can bring it consciously, we can not even have sex. We can just be pleasant and present to the day and to our breathing and find joy. That's the unified field. Just beneath, it's a lousy day, it's just another day. And once we can start to tap into that kind of responsibility and choice, we can start to live a more fulfilled, actualized life. So celibacy is a great thing. If that's where you're at, I mean, we could teach these practices that we teach to nuns and priests if they were vowed to celibacy. It's about not the act of sex, it's about being what that sexual energy represents and creates for us as a feeling, as a being, as a way of existing and seeing ourselves and being with each other.
Yeah. Understood. Now, one of the biggest challenges men have, though, is to make the distinction between sex and intimacy. Because too many times when a man hears the word intimacy, he immediately thinks about sex. So can you share how you view intimacy and what the difference might be between intimacy and sex?
Yeah. So, intimacy and sex can go together, but first it starts with into me I see, intimacy. And if all we're doing is projecting something about the other person, her breasts or her body, or I can't wait to make love there, then we aren't even being intimate. We're just being externally referenced in terms of something out there. We can't even see her. We can't even be with that person because we've already got an image of what we want. So into me I see in a way that, again, connects the breath, connects the energy, connects the thought, connects the spirit. Then that's another level of connecting with another person. Again, there's just a wonderful way to just be with each other without expectation that is just wonderful. But that expectation is something that we've become so accustomed to being in our lives that it's difficult to let go. But it starts with that breathing practice like we did, where you could just watch the thoughts and all the automaticities that we have done and just be still and watch those without having to do anything about it. And then we can start moment by moment, step by step, move towards this way we want to be, how we want to feel. And the old stuff shows up, but we can take a breath, we can see it, as we're watching, like a curious witness of ourselves over here. Because I call it this clay we look into the world from. So we're like all of the experiences, because at the beginning, and as I say, right beneath all the upset is just peace and joy, because at the beginning, we start out in the womb, it's womb service. We're just floating and it's wonderful. The embryonic fluid, there's no worries. Now you have to think about food. Then all of a sudden we're born, whoosh, bright lights. Some guys are getting, their wee-wees cut. And if you could think your mind was developed, you'd be thinking, send me back. Then life happens. Good days, bad days, in love, out of love, money days, no money, rainy days, sunny days. And then we get to a point in our life where we want to create something that we've never experienced before. Might be relationship or something else or work or a place that's fulfilling. And so to get to that place requires us letting go of what we know. And a lot of what we know and experienced is the clay we look into the world from. It's our beliefs. It's our modeling. It's kind of like the color of our eyes, really. So this dream, this idea can be gotten. It just requires us moment by moment, like the breath, letting go of this clay we look into the world from to then slowly step movement towards this thing we want to create. And in relationship, if you both aren't on the same page, you get stuck in fighting and upset and making the other wrong. And then you never see, one of the first keys to this transformational work is owning your upset. And when I say that, it doesn't mean like, well, I asked my wife to move the car because I got to go to work early in the morning and she keeps leaving the car there. And I'm pissed off because she leaves the car there. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't still have that request and we want to make an agreement about that. But the anger and the upset, I got to own.
Yeah.
And that's a much deeper looking at ourselves, because it's easy to project onto the other as to why I feel what I feel. Own what we feel. Not that we don't make requests or there isn't something that we want to shift or change or make different in a, external world. But that internal self is where we get confused and mixed up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why that inner work of awareness is so important. Now,
Bible.
I believe an important aspect of healthy sexuality is vulnerability. Can you share why vulnerability is important when it comes to healthy sexuality?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And for most of us guys, we're just, we start masturbating as soon as we get into our puberty, guys. But many women maybe have never even had an orgasm before. And a lot of it is for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of oppression for women around the sexual. You're a whore if you like sex, or you're bad if you have had a lot of boyfriends. Or there's all these judgments, as opposed to it's your life. But unlike a guy, we're lauded for our sexual prowess. First time you have sex, you're a man, a playboy, wow, harems forever. So for us, it's starting to bring some consciousness to this self. And that really makes a big difference in how we can start to move with flow and grace around the sexual energetic self.
Yeah. Now, as Black men, we have to deal with lots of stereotypes. And one of the stereotypes is that all Black men are hung to their knees. And some Black men see that as a compliment. I don't. So what are your thoughts about the impact that stereotype has on Black men?
Well, again, it's putting us in a box, and, so really getting to some of what we're talking about here is really the key to letting go and seeing all those stories and all those beliefs and those things over there. Because once we start to get into the intimacy piece of this, then relationship and experience starts to take on another dimension. And so, that stuff's out there and, let it go. But it's important to watch and see what shows up when you hear it or when your mind starts to tell you that story. And that's an observation of being a curious witness of ourselves. So what does that story do to my energy? What does that story do to my feeling? What is it that story activates for me as a witness? And not to make it wrong or wish it away, but just watch it. And that gives us some distance from being it. being at the effect of the story. So the breathing practice can be a real practice to shift and move out of a lot of the stuff that is out there that we've taken on as the truth for ourselves. Because there's really nobody out there. Go ahead.
Right. Now, of course, in line with that, there's also this long-standing myth that, as Black men, we have this uncontrollable sexual appetite. And I know that, once again, there's a lot of conditioning that a lot of men see that as a compliment, that, yeah, man, because like I mentioned in that illusion, that the illusion is to be a man, you must use sexual conquest as a gauge for manhood. And so a lot of men get trapped in that. But I'm curious, though, that stereotype that we as Black men have this uncontrollable sexual appetite, I think has a negative psychological impact on us as Black men. So how can we change that?
Yeah. Well, changing it internally is where it changes. So it's really getting that we are multidimensional and tuning into what it is you like to do, how you want to feel, what you know about yourself, what you believe. And then that's the process. But the same breathing practice, in a way, not even getting to the sexual meditation piece, is essential in terms of shifting a lot of those things that are out there that we've heard, that we've been told, that we've taken on as the truth. Because to shift it internally will shift it externally. It's where the objective becomes the subjective and they shift from the subjective. So like the water's falling from the sky. I can say, well, it's a lousy day. That the objective is that there's just water falling from the sky. That's all there is. And all the rest of it is subjective. It's just my story, my belief, what I say. So if I've heard that somewhere, that Black men are this or that, and I've taken it on as the truth, then energetically, that's going to be what I'm living up to, or what I think I have to be stuck in, or that there's no other way out of it. That becomes what I become the truth maker of. So in the practice of the breathing and the meditation and the being the witness of ourselves and having an idea of what and a feeling, energy and a frequency of feeling of what we want to feel, create, and be, that's the key to creating it so in the external world. So this inner work is essential. And you know that in other places in your life where we've done sports, where you just, you're tired, but you work out and then you do good in the game because you worked out, but you pushed through the thought of it was tired, I wanted to stop, but you didn't. Or school, or in a business, or in any, we've done it in other places in our lives. And so this is the thing about this inner work that's so important to shift something.
Yeah.
I was going to say in my go ahead.
No, but my point is that for those of you who are watching, this conversation really boils down to our ability and willingness to be aware of what's going on in here and in here. Because like I said, there are tons and tons of stereotypes out there, but as Freddy's saying, I believe, we have to be willing to change those inner narratives about ourselves. And that's what the work of transformation is really all about.
Yeah. And, as Black people on the planet and in America, there's the whole racism thing. And it's not to say that racism doesn't exist, or there isn't systemic racism, or that there aren't places in society that racism just exists because it was just created there. It's not that. It's about how it lives for us. If I'm constantly thinking, oh, the racism has kept me down and I'm so pissed off about life and blah, 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 then that's what I'm creating. And it's not to say that we don't do something in terms of how we vote or where we put our money or what things we do or create to shift those things in an external world, in a physical world. It's how I can live with and be and use that energy, transmute that energy from a negative to a positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without the suffering story of it.
Yeah, and the challenge that I've had most of my life is that I've gotten a lot of pushback from Black folk because of my optimism, because that's the lens through which I see the world. But at the same time, I don't deny racism exists. I don't deny the systemic racism in the system. But at the same time, what I believe is that I am 100% responsible for what I think and how I think. And when I can control that, I can control my life. That's just how I see it. Now, with that being said, again, we're talking about healthy sexuality. And one of the things that I hear too often is some men say, well, I don't believe in monogamy because I don't think men were supposed to be with just one woman. Now, just want to get your take on monogamy and how it works for you.
Hmm.
If
Well,
it works for you.
yeah, no. We've been together for 25 years, and we've been a lot of ways. We've been open. We've been monogamous. We've been not celibate, but we've done very conscious lovemaking, and we're in more of that kind of phase now, you know. And so the thing of it is, it's never like it was or like it's going to be. It's like it is. And most of us miss the isness because we're in our head about the yesterday or analyzing the now or imagining the future, and we miss the moment. So in relationship, to have clear agreements is important. And if monogamy is working for you and you both agree on that, then it's beautiful. If it looks like one or both of you want to open up individually or collectively, then that's beautiful. I think it's important to be honest with yourself because it's all good. There's no one cookie cutter way for everybody. So that's where the intimacy I see comes in, because some of these things are so frightening for people to even approach, you know, and then they just get divorced, you know, because he wants to try different relationship or different sexual experiences. And she's like, you know, you don't love me if you do that, you know, but it doesn't mean you can't have the agreements that you have. You just shift the agreements until you say, well, I'm not going to do this and we're going to do this and then do that for a period of time and then change it to another. See, relationships really should be like on a legal contract. So like you can say like, for 6 months, we're going to this. And then after that, we're going to evaluate and see what we want to do from there. And that would be a really conscious relationship. But most of us can't emotionally work with what happens for us when we get activated with, you know, what we, you know, kind of go back to our childhood. We aren't loved if you don't do this or you don't do that. You know, it's like you being who you are is not allowed.
Yeah.
So we have to continue to expand that.
And I think that's where it begins with us being comfortable with who we are. I think it begins with us being willing to, you know, do that deep inner work to understand who we are authentically and not buy into society's roles and narratives that say we're supposed to be a certain way. And I think, once again, that's what this whole transformational process is all about. It's about waking up to who you truly are, the essence of who you are.
Yeah, it takes a lot of bravery to live your life, you know, in your own way, because there's expectations, there's fears, there's so many things that keep us stuck in a place, and we die, and then we never lived our lives fully. But a fully actualized life takes courage. You know, I was in the software business for 20 years before I created this work 25 years ago. And it's the best expression of everything that I love to do, that I do the best. And it's the best expression of my giving anything back to the world, the best that I can do it. And we all are unique in that way. We have something that is very unique about who we are, that the world will never be the same when we're gone. But most of us don't really see the opportunity, take the opportunity, find the way to start to express and move towards that true happiness. It's like we're more accustomed to, you know, our rationalized suffering than and live out the life. One day maybe I'll be happy, you know, and we become resigned to, you know, the life that we're living, and as opposed to the life that we would like to be living. So that's the opportunity, is to keep using these practices, and transformation is about moving towards that, living your life fully.
Yeah.
In relationship and how you want to be.
Now, what's your take on the current buzzwords, toxic masculinity?
Mm. Well, that's the old patriarchal male, you know, and we see it, it's everywhere. I mean, you know, and now we're really seeing it on the big stage. And it's the old paradigm of, you know, who we've been. And I really do believe that the new man is the Tantra man, and the Tantra man being the man who is engaged in all the emotional breadth of what's possible in the human expression. In my men's workshop, we do, one of the exercises is an emotional awareness exercise. And we go through a range of emotions, you know, anger, I love you, sadness, craziness, and so on. And so men really get to see how stuck we are in emotional expression. Yet we have all those feelings. And so until we can start to get a little bit of distance from how we take these emotions so seriously, we can't begin to move towards the kind of bravery it takes to live an authentic life in terms of, not taking any prisoners around your own happiness.
Yeah, got it. So last question.
I don't know if that answered the question about toxic men, but
I got you. Yeah, I got you. That's good. So what advice would you give to Black men who want to cultivate deeper, more fulfilling romantic relationships beyond societal expectations of sexual prowess?
Yeah. Well, meditative practices, certainly Tantra Nova or any kind of sexual awareness meditation practices, begin to create a list of the things that you want in your life, how you want to experience your life. Let yourself dream for a little bit. And this is the thing that connects us to this universe is our imagination. Because I mentioned this clay that we look into the world from, and that's like the color of our eyes. Yet this imagination is like quantum. It's like the universe. It goes on forever. So let yourself dream for a few moments without hesitation, without if, ands, or buts. Write that down, and then begin to do the practices to start feeling that experience internally, and then do the practice. So the process is like be, do, have. So if there's something you wrote that you want to have, then most of us go right to the doing process, and then we suffer through the doing process, and we might not even get through the whole doing process. But if we start with the being process, which is the emotional, energetic feeling of something, the meditation, that's the just feeling into the frequency of this thing that I want to have, do, and so on, then we can start to move and find the places that will give us the resources to keep on this path of happiness and creativity. So that's what I would suggest for Black, white, anything, whatever.
Yeah. All right. So then I want to give you an opportunity to tell the audience how they can find you if they'd like to work with you.
Right. So you can find us on the internet at tantranova.com, TANTRANOV like Victor A.com, tantranova.com.
Gotcha.
And there you find everything that you need in terms of workshops and men's workshops, women's workshops, couples workshops. It's all there.
Perfect. Perfect. So now I want you to share your closing thoughts, whatever's on your heart and mind to share.
Yeah. Be happy and strive to be happy in your life. Don't take any prisoners around that. When things come up, self-reference, look at yourself and own your upsets. If you have a request to be made, make that request. Or if there's no request to be made, keep moving towards that arc of fulfillment and happiness and joy. Stay authentic.
Stay authentic. Well, Freddie, I just want to say thank you, bro, for sharing your wisdom with us today. Once again, I knew that you're my guy when it comes to talking about sexuality. So keep up the great work that you're doing, man. I'm so glad that we're on the same team of empowerment. So it's been my honor and pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Really excited. Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much.
All right. So this has been another episode of the Brotherhood of Kings podcast. And until next time, stay true, stand tall, and walk boldly in your kingship, because authentic masculinity is power with purpose. Until next time, stay royal.